Welcome, everyone, to our fourth annual WOCP SCN National Girls and Women in Sport. WOCP SCN Inc. cannot be held liable for any comments, discussions, or contents presented by guests or speakers during any program designated by WOCP and GSP, and all initiatives within the organization. With that said, my name is Ronnie Savage, and I am one of the founding members of WOCPSCN, as well as the COO and the Sports Opportunity Director of the organization. Who are we? We are the Women of Concern Professionals Strategic Conference Networking, Inc., or as we lovingly call ourselves, WOCPSCN. Our mission is to present active approaches to community development and social economic sustainability under our 4 pillars principle: community development, women's health, education, and global sustainability. Our founder and CEO, Ms. Loretta Green Williams, and I met in grad school at the University of San Francisco and wanted to do something after graduation to make a difference in our community and our global world. We were the more mature women of the cohort. To say we had families and we had older children. My son was on his way to college, and Loretta's girls were out in college and doing their thing at the time. The other students would kind of chuckle because we were always the ones that would say, child, baby, because we was the mamas of the class. We would talk about and make a pact that she and I really wanted to make an indent, and that some of the other students in the class just didn't have the same experience or have been where we have been at the time. So to say that, we decided that we wanted to carve out a unique niche in the global world, and to, really say something for women of color. So while I was grieving the loss of my husband, and Loretta was grieving the loss of a child and ending a marriage, we came up with this concept, and we haven't looked back since. Loretta had the vision, and she still has that vision, and she holds on to that vision. And I'm so grateful to her for this vision. So we started working on our community development. We started with our AM Power Networking, although that event was canceled our first year, but that didn't discourage us. We went on to, and Loretta created B4B, Business for Business Networking, and a job fair in Oakland. So that was like our first community event. Then we set out to do something for women who had been silenced. So under our pillar of women's health, we developed our signature event that takes place yearly, and that's the Walk of Silence for the Silence, our domestic violence solidarity walk. And we have participants from around the world. Our first year, our walk partners not only were in the US, and we partnered with UCLA our first year as well, but we also extended out to Africa, the UK, and Australia just in our first year. Through our education pillar, our programs, My Pet Initiative, the Urban Gurl, Suburban Swurl, we educate through sports. So we would like to salute the women and girls in sports and help young girls to seek higher education by way of sports. This education helps to increase their leadership skills and self-esteem. I know as a young athlete myself, I learned valuable lessons that I still hold to this day and I carry with me. And I try to pass on those to other young women and girls in sports. Our global sustainability is just what it says it is. It was created GSP, Global Sustainability Partnership, which helps to enhance the connectivity within gender equity and gender equality through human rights, a small part of our GSP initiative. All four of our pillars connect on what we're discussing today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our monitor and one of my besties, Miss Yvette Perry.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm glad that everyone is here to share this innovative and very exciting topic with us this morning. I'm going to introduce our panel first, so you'll know which angle we're all coming from and see what wonderful women we have that came together this morning for this. And I'd like to thank Ronnie and Loretta for inviting us, and the organization WOCPSCN for sponsoring this kind of conversation. I'm gonna start with Samantha Stewart. She supports Powerful Female Operation Director. She's a supporting Powerful Female Operation Director. She's in the fitness industry. She's a catalyst coaching, so she's a very big empowerment to women, and this is we're very, very privileged to have her today. She's out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And then we have Dr. Susan Haynes, AKA Doc, is a veteran professional educator who has taught at all three levels of education in the state of California and currently teaches psychology at California State University of Los Angeles. Additionally, she serves as a university supervisor, teaching, mentoring, and supporting new K-12 teachers, and fills the same role for teacher interns at the LA County Office of Education. She holds 4 degrees, 3 credentials, and several certifications, including a full certification as a life coach. She is a penultimate professional whose teaching style is uniquely her own swag, and she knows that students who have been in her classes over the years have obtained subject matter knowledge, life lessons, discovered the joy of learning, and experienced immense personal growth while exploring who they are, their destiny, and their purpose. Susan is also a professional sports official for basketball and softball who absolutely loves to see girls out there on the courts and fields of life, just doing their thing. She's authentic and always down for whatever is good and right in the world. And I can testify that is 100% true. She is always, I've known Susan off and on for 30 years, because I left 18 years and came back. But she's, when I need that talk, that's who I'll call right there. That because she will give you that talk. Then we have Dr. Tamisha Brame. Am I saying that right, Tamisha? Brame or Brahmi? I never asked you. I think I just always said Brame. She's a 23-year veteran educator also, and earning both a bachelor's and master's degree, as well as a CA, a California teaching credential from California State University, Dominguez Hills. Tamisha's expertise is physical education. She's been a lifelong learner. She also earned a doctoral degree in education leadership and represents over 350 educators as a labor leader and educational advocate. Tamisha is passionate about guiding personal development through all self-awareness, strategic planning, leadership development, rapport building, and physical fitness. Tamisha is also dedicated to community uplift through outreach and her advocacy for access to opportunities, shared decision-making, effective educational institutions, and enhanced human conditions. She is also the proud parent of 3 student athletes. And she did not include in her bio that she is our new mentee. She just started officiating high school basketball this year. And myself and Dr. Susan and Ronnie are supporting her in that plight. And I guess myself, I am Yvette Perry. I am the instructional chair for the California Basketball Officials Association. That means I train and certify 150 officials to service our high schools in the Southern California area. I also have 14 instructors that I support to help deliver that message to our officials locally. I've played, I've coached, I still coach when I have the time, and I love getting in, being involved in these kind of community conversations. We are just, when I say elated, this is just amazing. Thank you for everyone that's joining us. So why are we here? So we have a conversation that's going on in Congress about a new a new bill that they're generating called the Protection of Women in Sports and Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2023. This bill generally prohibits school athletic programs from allowing individuals whose biological sex at birth was male to participate in programs that are for women or girls. Specifically, the bill provides that it is a violation of Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 for federally funded education programs or activities to operate, sponsor, or facilitate athletic programs or activities that allow individuals of the male sex to participate in programs or activities that are designated for women or girls. Title IX, if you're not aware of what that is, it prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded education programs or activities, including in public elementary, secondary schools, and in colleges and universities. Now, under this bill, sex is based on an individual's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. The bill does not prohibit male individuals from training or practicing with programs or activities for women or girls, as long as such training or practice does not deprive any female of corresponding opportunities or benefits. The Government Accountability Office must report on the benefits for women or girls in single-sex sports that will be lost as a result of male participation. In particular, the report must document the negative psychological, developmental, participatory, and sociological effects of male participation on girls. I know that's a lot. We're going to put the link to this bill in the chat so you can reference it throughout this forum. Oh shoot, did I lose everybody? Hold on. Okay. Oh no. You guys still see me? Okay, good. Okay. It's a lot, and this topic has come up recently in the swimming arena. I've heard about it personally in the basketball arena. There are a lot of pros, and there are several cons, which is why someone actually sat down and thought about bringing up a bill about it. So this is just a friendly conversation, no judgment either way, on is this bill valid? Is this something that needs to have a conversation about it? You know, is this something that's really going to affect our society? Let's start with Samantha. When you heard about this bill and this topic, what was the first thing that came to mind for you?
The first thing that came to mind for me was just the physiological differences between males and females in terms of muscular size and strength, and what that would mean on a competitive playing field in terms of risk of injury. In the world of fitness, it's always a matter of the highest reward to the lowest risk, so lowest risk possible. And then the next thing that came to mind for me was with challenge, the point of sport is to have challenge. But being able to succeed in challenges is what enables us to create a sense of well-being. So that was the next point that came to the mind of, if there are major discrepancies in physical ability, aside just the risk of injury, what would that mean to the emotional well-being of females if they're not on a playing field where they are able to succeed?
Those are good points to think about. Dr. Carter, so on the physical fitness side too, what came to mind for you when this bill came out?
Good evening or good morning, everyone. Good evening for some. For me, the first thing that came up was my own actual children. So I put on a parental hat, being the mother of 2 daughters and the mother of 1 son. I thought about, like Samantha said, the physiological differences, between my daughters competing with someone who may have greater strength and ability based on factors that they themselves could not control. Like they can get in the gym and put on more weight, and they can train and become stronger and faster, but are they actually going to have the opportunity to compete at a competitive level and be on the same playing field as their competitor? So I thought about the bill in terms of my own children participating, and the risk of injury is always great in any kind of sport. You want to be able to train enough to prevent injuries, but sometimes you have those freak accidents that happen, and sometimes our bodies are just tired, and fatigue gets the best of all of us at times. And so I think about this bill in terms of the impact to my own children. As an educator, being a physical educator, I also think about the impact for being inclusive to all of my students and providing space for all of my students. And at a less competitive level, let's say my PE class, there typically isn't an issue. I would typically want everyone to try and do their very best. And so I think, well, when I think about it, my lens is multifaceted. And so in consideration of all aspects, I would also defer, like Samantha said, to the psychological impact of it all to make sure that all persons are included and have space to be competitive and accepted and be able to have just as much fun and get the psychological benefit of playing sports.
That's I love the parental side of it. Is what are we considering, and also the competitive edge. Psychological. So Dr. Susan, I'm coming to you. On the psychological side, when you read this bill, I know how you think. You had bullet points. Let's talk about those bullet points.
I think probably the first thing that came to mind was, what next? Who are they coming after next? Let me kind of give you a little background. I've been actually teaching the psychology of gender for about 5 years now, and I've grown and I've learned quite a bit from teaching that particular class. Prior to teaching that class, the majority, well, all of my exposure to the concept was by teaching abnormal psychology. Now, note that I said abnormal psychology. So as soon as you say that, you're talking about a situation where somebody is not right. They're whatever it is. So at the time, in the past, it was called gender identity disorder, and it discussed those individuals who were struggling with their identity, and then now it's called gender dysphoria. So the point I'm making with that is that people who are transgender are simply those who are just struggling with who they are from a gender perspective, has already been deemed abnormal by our society, by the international psychological community. So that's, yes, all of those terms do sound negative. I'm reminded of one of the videos that I show of a young lady named Jazz Jennings. At the age of 5, she did an interview with Barbara Walters. and she was identifying as a girl at 5 years old. She was actually, and so her parents met with her doctor and they talked to her and looked at how she was and just said, okay, this is not a phase. We're going with this. And so she is one of she's an exception because the word happy, transgender kid, and parent supportive all came together in one sentence. At one point in that interview, they're interviewing her, they're speaking with her sister and two brothers. And of course, they love her unconditionally, do you? And when they ask her sister to describe what she says when her friends ask about it, she said, oh, well, I just tell them that, it's a disorder and blah, blah, blah. And then Jazz comes back as a 10-year-old at that 11-year-old at that time and says, well, no, I don't consider it's disorder. I consider myself to be unique. So this lends itself to how important language is when we're talking about these kind of issues, because bottom line is we're still talking about people. We're still talking about human beings, and they have human feelings and desires and wants and needs and so on and so forth. And I think oftentimes that humanness gets left out of the conversation. In terms of our society and how that societal conversation has impacted people. I wanted to share that there are 930, I just did a little research here, 933,000 articles available if you type in transgender, and specifically transgender females and transgender girls. In the last couple of years, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had 959,000 different articles about transgender laws in states. 2021, well, as of 2023, over 120 bills had been introduced into legislation restricting LGBTQ plus rights. And this is nationwide. 2023 was a horrific year for transgender people. And one of the biggest type of people that the laws are coming for is children. So now I go into the personal aspect of it. We are attacking children. We are attacking children. And that's not right with me. That will never be right with me, that you will attack children.
Thank you for bringing the institutional side of things, the educational perspective. And feel free, audience, if you have any questions, to hit the raise hand or comments. This is a discussion, so we all want input and feedback from everyone.
Can I make one more point? The majority of anti-trans laws tend to have one common target: trans athletes.
Yes.
And then it branches out from there.
Yes, there was several scenarios over about the last 4 years. One, I remember in the Olympics, the young lady who they excluded, as a young woman who is a biological woman, they excluded because her testing came back with high testosterone. So they were afraid then that she would have an advantage, that she would have some edge on winning a competition. And for some reason, when we're in competition, or a threat to someone in competition, that's when these bills and laws come out. And we have to, as society, I mean, competition is, as you in my psychological panel, we know brings out the worst in everyone. Everyone wants to win, and they want to win, and they think that you're going to cheat to win. And that's just not fair. It's just not fair to anyone. We invited a special guest with us today, Miss L. Day. She is not an athlete, but she is a transgender, living a life as transgender. And forgive me if I step on a toe, political terminology. L, it's not personal. Love you, but fix me whatever I go wrong. Because I'm here learning too. I actually just took a course at work about diversity and transgender, and learning terminology like binary, I didn't know any of that up until 2 weeks ago. And I was doing that in preparation for this call. So please, like I said, nope, don't blame my idiotic mind. But we wanted to bring you on, like I told you earlier. I felt it would be a total disservice and disrespect to speak over about something that we don't live and don't understand. So we wanted someone that lives it, understand it. What is something, forget about the sports part, just living your day-to-day life and everything Susan just said on how we're perceiving everything. How have you overcome this journey and these obstacles?
Well, that's a great question, honestly. Yeah, honestly, yeah, it really is a great question. I
Well,
guess
let's
maybe
come back to it. Let's build to that question
yeah,
then. How
yeah,
did
yeah.
would you like to share your plight and how you started this life and how and we, first of all, we know it's about happiness and acceptance, so let's start there. But when you decided I'm going to live my life as a woman, did you expect support or did you expect the obstacles?
Definitely the obstacles. There was a lot I wasn't sure of. I mean, I was thankful that like being from Los Angeles and kind of a more like, I guess, progressive like pocket of Los Angeles, that I knew there would at least be some people around me who would be accepting. And I was very lucky and grateful that my parents were accepting, although it did take them kind of some like learning and some time to kind of get on board with that. But I think it's really been amazing. I think in particular, my relationship with my parents has only gotten way better. It kind of at first had a little bit, a little bit of a down part at first, but then you kind of get through that rough patch, and then now it's just like it's such a more real connection because I can exist as who I really am and share those stories with them instead of feeling like I have to hide or protect myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, that's I guess about acceptance. Yeah, I mean, I guess there are some other things I could speak about
Phil, yes,
surrounding the
please.
bill, or
Yes.
yeah, because I guess the first thing that stood out to me, like when looking at the bill, is that it wasn't very, I guess, like nuanced in terms of its uh, legislation. It's kind of this like, blanket, like one size fits all solution. I don't think there's really a one size fits all solution either way pertaining to this issue. And it's kind of just reminiscent of this kind of larger, um, I don't really know what to call this phenomenon that you see happening in conservative pockets of America, that these legislation that try to kind of police against trans people and kind of in a way like legislate them out of existence by taking away certain things, starting from the athletics to then the child care and the gender affirming care and changing legal gender identity and driver's licenses, and then that all leads up to banning gender affirming care just for adults in general on a national level. And so I guess that's one thing that I think about surrounding this bill is, I guess maybe similar to what Dr. Haynes said, is like, what's next? And that a lot of people who are in agreement with this bill, and I'm not saying everyone, but there are people who come from that pocket who, is first they've said like, yes, then the ban on childcare, gender affirming care, and then following that to adults. And then so it's someone who may agree with this bill, may not agree with that, but I think something to consider is that those people are, so to speak, still on your side. And I think that's something that, I don't know, I think maybe people can sit and reflect with and think, why is that? Why are these people who want to take it a step further than maybe I would want to, agreeing with me on this issue? So yeah, I think this whole notion that you can kind of just, legislate trans people out of existence just doesn't make any sense because, they're never going to stop, like we're never going to stop going to existing. If you look at history and specifically Indigenous history is something I look back to, and Two-Spirit people and how they've existed long before the existence of this country and all the things that have happened across this continent. So it's never things like this where you try to pet this like one size fits all, like legislate trans people, police trans people out of existence, is never really going to get anywhere, because again, they're going to continue to exist, you know, for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to end. It's, you can't change how people feel, how
Yeah,
people want to
yeah,
live their lives.
yeah.
What's the difference? Does anyone, one thing I want, when the bill came out, working in sports, like I said, I first saw, oh Lord, people are threatened by what Tamisha said about, you know, someone being bigger, stronger, faster. I shared a story earlier. There was a player at Long Beach City College a few years ago, who was a transgender male playing basketball on the women's team. And there was no doubt that they were bigger, stronger, taller, faster, athletic. As a matter of fact, they averaged 25 points a game. They won co-MVP of the conference. And I just thought about something when I was telling the story. Only reason why she won co-MVP is because they couldn't deny her MVP, because she actually performed and outperformed everyone else, but they made sure they had the female who was just as competitive as she was, that she was acknowledged. So they made it a co-MVP. It was a big discussion about it. And I think there's an article I'm gonna look for while we're here. And I was like, wow, that's something to think about. But when I saw her play, I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was fun. I thought it brought a new light to the game, that, okay, she's here. Now, are you gonna play or not? You know, it's you can't change it. She's here. And we're gonna have to accept it, you know. So that was something that came up. I saw Samantha's hand.
Oh, you just walked all over my hand. Go ahead,
Samantha was
Samantha.
first.
No, I was, because I was like this. I'm not gonna fight with you.
I'll defer. You can go first, Dr. Haynes. Go ahead. I'll follow you.
Okay, great. I just, a couple of other things. Is the issue about transgender individuals, or is the question that needs to be asked, why are you so afraid
Why are you so afraid
of these human beings?
Where's the threat? Where are we really with the threat? That's what that's what my question is. Samantha?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to offer my input on the importance of language, because I agree language is extremely powerful.
Yes.
And I've heard the word attack a few different times, and I think it's interesting that the title of this bill is the protection of women and girls in sports. And what I'm hearing is that it's being perceived as an attack. And I don't view it that way. And my positioning, my stance, my opinion is not one of fear or being afraid. It's one of trying to figure this out. So I think we're all in agreement that we want people to love themselves. We want people to accept themselves. We want people to experience both the joy and be able to overcome challenges in life. And we all have different challenges. And I think it'd be interesting if we would view this as a intention to find a healthy solution. So I find that the word attack is not very appropriate from my standpoint. I don't view this as an attack. I view this on a group and a society of people who want to find a way to provide a way for people. And I wanted to make that clarification. This is not one of fear from me. This is one of desiring to understand and support and protect.
And that is a great segue into my next topic about being inclusive. We already know this bill is saying, no, we don't accept transgender into women's sports. That's what they're trying to push. Well, how do we include them then? What's the answer? What's the fix? Anybody have a suggestion?
I do. I know, I didn't raise my hand. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think for women in sports, I think we have a panel right now of strong, powerful individuals who all have a common denominator, which is sport, a love of sport. And we talked before we came on live about how sports have really been a segue for us in our personal development, our careers, and a love for it. And it took a long time for females to be permitted in athletics at all. It took a very long time. In fact, you know, there's still great divide in the way that male and female, you know, sports are funded and paid and all of that. So, you know, I think it's just another extension of that. I don't think I have I do not have an answer, but I think that we are one discussion as part of a much larger path of discussions that will need to be had. And it's about finding solutions. And I think that the more of these kind of discussions that we have, the better. And the more open-minded we are, the better. And the more that we are not afraid to, you know, voice different opinions, the better. And we're not going to get it right on the first time. That's what I know for sure.
That's a great answer. Very good answer. Dr. Cotter?
I think Ronnie was first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she was telling me there were hands up. Go ahead, Ronnie.
It's okay. Thank you, Dr. Carter.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, because I'm probably the most mature person on this call. And so I remember back in high school getting hand-me-down uniforms from the boys team when I played basketball at Morningside High School in Inglewood, California. And they were smelly, they were dirty. My mother couldn't even get it clean. So when we got Title IX and was able to get our very own uniforms when I think I was in the 11th grade, and they were brand new. Well, the team took them home. We wore them to school the next day. It wasn't even a game. We were so excited and ecstatic about being included in sports as women athletes. But my question to the panel is, as parents, I've seen, because I've been researching this for over a year, I've seen parents complaining about their female girls, biological girls, being excessively hurt in sports. So how does that play into the conversation, and how can we include them and let them understand that we're just want to be inclusive of everyone when their athletes are having extreme, and it hasn't been a lot of cases, but I've read about one young lady that had to have facial reconstruction and all her teeth, front teeth put back in through oral surgery. So that's my question: is what do we tell our parents on how we're going to make it safe and inclusive for everyone?
Absolutely. Okay, let me look at the order now. Okay, Dr. Carter.
Yeah, I think one, I just want to echo Samantha's clarification in regards to using the word attack. I too don't see this bill as an attack. I also see it as, like the title says, protection of women and girls in sports. But I also understand and want to echo Dr. Haynes's concern, or lift up what she said in regards to what's next. Oftentimes when we don't have a lot of trust and faith in our lawmakers, we don't hear or see the underlying conversations that come up, and we don't know what covert operations are going on behind the scenes when bills or legislation is presented to us. As a parent, I can say that I would be very, very concerned with having my daughters on a court or in a competition with anyone who would who by society standards is not genetically of the same caliber as them, for the reason of the physiological concerns. Injury, being prone to injury is a common in sports. So the normal operations of potential injury wouldn't be my concern. But let's say if my daughters were boxers, a combative sport, and they are competing against someone who, let's say their brother, I would not want my daughters fighting with their brother because of the physical dominance that males have. Some males, let's be clear on that, some males have over female athletes. So from that standpoint, I would want it to be an even playing field. Like I said earlier, I definitely would encourage my daughters and my son to train to be the best that they can be on the court. And I would want them to be better, stronger, and faster based on their training, based on their knowledge of the sport, as opposed to how they were designed at birth. In addition to the challenge of it all, there's also that psychological effect. I'm not sure if any child would be able to compete and see that someone is who they may think is a boy or girl and have fun in that environment if they couldn't be competitive. If the competition isn't equal or on the same standard, then I think that would set up the psychological concern. I think the bill aims to tackle those concerns. The aspects that I've researched were, one, the funding. And when we talk about funding, that's pretty much the equalizer. If you don't get any funding, then you got to play by my rules. So if you want the funding, you have to play by my rules. So I think that's one of the guidelines. I think the designation of how sex is defined in the bill tries to put in those barriers where it has to be your designation or your biological designation at birth. The bill also aims to determine or to be inclusive of males at birth, designated at birth, being able to train and not necessarily compete, but train with girls or women, as long as it doesn't deprive girls or women a spot on the team or a place in that training apparatus. And then it also implies the opportunity to do further research on how this bill either benefits or deprives or doesn't benefit girls or women in this competition. But again, I also wear the hat as a Black woman living in this skin, like Dr. Haynes said. What else is next? And is this bill actually what it means, or is this a covert operation for something else? So we shall see.
Exactly. That's a good point. Thank you for that, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. I just want to acknowledge, the concern of what is next. I think I don't have the same experiences as some of you folks do, but I can empathize that having an initial thought of what is next is not a pleasant one. So I just want to acknowledge that. I do want to speak for a minute on back to the physiological differences. And first, I will say, I'm not a parent, not yet. I hope to be one day. I've trained a lot of young females, and I've mentored young females younger than me and children. And I've coached athletics at lower levels, and I coach a lot of women. And and I've played a lot of sports, and I'm a tough lady too. So with that, I've competed against males in sports as a teenager and as an adult woman. And I can attest to the real differences in strength, despite all of the mind over matter that I would love to be able to say, I can handle it. I can compete with the guys. I've been able to, and I've also gotten very hurt for my own, volition. At puberty, what happens physiologically between males and females? There are studies that show that, let me just pull it up here real quick. So we have here a 20 to 30-fold increase in testosterone levels at puberty. And testosterone is the hormone that promotes muscle growth and strength in both genders. But with that kind of an increase, there's naturally going to be, right, a difference in males and females. There's a difference between absolute and relative strength. So absolute strength, that defined is the ability to exert force regardless of the size of the person exerting the force. Okay, that's absolute. So if a male and a female both weigh 150 pounds and the female can squat 150 pounds, but the male can only squat 100 pounds, pound for pound, that female has more strength. Okay, but there's a difference in size and ability level. There just is.
So the part is this could go both ways. So this bill can actually backfire.
I would not, at this point, I would not necessarily agree.
Right.
Because the physiological differences are still there. One can train, and as a woman who has trained very hard, very heavy, has gotten and is quite strong, I can say I've definitely been able to outlift plenty of males.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I've also gotten injured and been humbled, realizing that, oh, pound for pound, or even somebody larger than me, or even somebody my same weight level, there have been differences. So I wanted to speak to that. I'm all for inclusion, and I think this is something that for the well-being of all human beings, we want people to feel like they belong. We want them to be heard and seen and have place and be supported. Having social support is one of the biggest indicators of a person's well-being as we go through life. So I think it's just so important and critical. And I don't think it's something that we're going to fix right away, but it is something that we are in the works of doing, which is why I'm so happy to be part of this conversation. Before puberty, the sports, one of the major benefits of sports at any age is it's a play. Play is important for our development. Play is important for our emotional well-being. And I think for younger people in sports, T-ball, 7 years old, 10 years old, so much of it is about play. And in fact, sometimes we're nudged into competitiveness, earlier than maybe is great. You see a big divide in sports where younger and younger, they're going into hyper competitive leagues, becoming one sport athletes at very young ages. And there are different opinions on that. But, the element of play, I think, is something that is all people are entitled to have. And, in terms of a parent and what kind of decisions they would then have to make, I think it really also, raises more what's next for parents of how they'll have to, what conversations will they have to have with children if they do not think it's safe for their daughter to play a sport against, people who are male at birth. what kind of conversations and what kind of divide, and how will that affect the parental and child relationship too? So I mean, there's so many more questions I think will come out of it than answers, but it just gives more topics for us to discuss. But the point of inclusion, I think, is one that I think we're all in agreement. We would like to see happen. And when it does come down to the funding, fortunately and unfortunately, funding is promotion. Funding is promotion. So, while I don't view this as being an attack on anyone, I can certainly see how it would not be in promotion of participation. So I do want to acknowledge that. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak on that.
Yes. Sylvia, I saw your hand up. I was wondering when you're going to jump in. I know how you think too. This is Sylvia Biggett. We are actually like the same position in two different states. She's in Texas, and we talk every summer. We do some off-season training virtually. She has a great platform on Facebook as well with training officials. And we actually played against each other 20 plus years ago and ran into each other again recently, and I'm just loving it. So thank you for joining our call today. And what you got?
Well, great morning, everybody. Great morning. My call says hello, everybody. Great morning. Very good topic. Interesting. I was just listening at first and said, wait, I got some conversation here. So let's have a conversation. Okay, so the biggest thing, a little background myself, besides officiating, I played as well. Coached. I also now train a referee different levels from JUCO on down to elementary, middle school. I do the whole thing, first grade, second grade. I teach those kids as well as referees, and now we're trying to get in the program to train girls and boys in refereeing and officiating. My biggest thing I was going to say was I'm a former U.S. Army drill sergeant. Okay, so my actual background in the military, and as you know, most of the training ground for societal changes is in the military, in the Army. They'll try in the Army, they'll merge the blacks and whites, and then they make society do it. They do the mixed drills out of the mills, and they put the society do it. And so as that happens, if those who don't know that, they want to test drugs, they pump us with it, then they say, hey, they all live? Okay, society gets it. Okay, so with that said, as I was coming up as a player, as we train soldiers in the military, is one army. Okay. So as we say this, it's actually what happens. We train together now. Used to be female cycles, male cycles. Now we train together. It's a cycle. Females and males train together at the same time. Yes, there are physical differences, intelligently as well as physical. Okay, a lot of differences of everything. And you have the outliers. Some of the men are very intelligent. Okay, right, and some women are very strong. Okay, this was the comment. So it depends on individuals on what kind of cycle and who's speaking or who's doing things at that time. Okay, so when it comes down to, I think the sports itself, when I was actually playing, for my skills to get better, I felt, and many females feel, we play with the guys. Okay, so any females already playing that's trying to develop, you'll see them all. They all play with it. They play at a higher level, so they can play at a higher level at the females. So them not already playing with men or boys is a little bit of ignorance if people don't understand the sport itself. Okay, so anybody that wants to get better at where they're at, they'll always try to find something that's more challenging to make their skills get higher. Then they go back to playing with girls, and that's how you see the girls so much better in certain areas. Okay, so the thing about them starting to play, is nothing starting. This is already happening. It's already going, and these girls are already. I survived. I'm in the military. I ran, trained with men, went to combat with men, and I'm good. Faces all together. I played basketball with guys. Yeah, pick up ball with guys all the time to get better, and I'm good. I might have got hit, stepped on the toe or something every now and then, but that happens all the time. So sometimes it comes down to when we have these conversations, I'm like, well, where are these people living? Because if you are actually in the industry, in the athlete, and you'd see that this is already going on. So why are we now putting legislation in something that's already happening? So we're going to take the Army now and divide them up. Now we're
Exactly.
gonna have female but male cyclists. You know,
Right.
so where are we going with that? That's all I had. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Al, yes, ma'am. What you got?
Yeah, I guess a couple things, but first is like the notion that like sports are equal. They're entirely not equal. When you look at the Olympics, it's like the most powerful and economically well countries get all the medals, and
Mhm.
countries who are basically just fighting for their existence just to, exist, do not get a lot of medals. So there's an inequality just inherent in that, and that a lot of male athletes, a lot of the ones that are the best and most celebrated and looked at as elite, have these, I guess, certain like you could call it like biological, I don't know, advantages or things that cause them to perform better at their sport. So like Michael Phelps had something. There was this Finnish skier who had this thing where it was like producing more red blood cells. And so I guess what's interesting is that these, male athletes are celebrated, and they're the most elite, and they're the best. But I guess when a woman is overperforming, so to speak, it's like, well, okay, well, she can't be a woman, then she must be a man. And I don't really understand this notion of like, I guess, policing women in sports. And I find it's like kind of, putting like a cap on, how well women can perform in sports, because it's saying like, um, again, like with this bill, if a woman has performed really well, then people may say, oh, she's not man, or she's not a woman, da da da. And so I find that very, I guess, kind of reductionist and dehumanizing towards women. And I also like that you brought up that one case of the Olympic athlete who in Rio 2016 track and field, because that was another case of that policing
Yeah,
going
policing
on.
the wrong thing.
Yeah. And so I guess another thing that I also wanted to bring up is so surrounding like the current issue of transgender athletes and wanting to be involved, or transgender women athletes wanting to be involved in women's sports. I guess the thing that I've seen that's, I guess, maybe accepted is this like 2-year like waiting period or something for them to get hormones and things of that nature. And the one thing that always stuck out to me is that like if you stop just policing trans people's existence on every level, and starting from the athletes, then to the children and so on, which is kind of the path that some of the like conservatives have wanted to take. If you just stop doing that and you just live in a society where you just let trans people be people from a very young age, kind of like the example of Jazz that Dr. Haynes brought up, then this issue doesn't have to exist in the first place. So yeah, that's another thing that always stood out to me, because I never really heard it being brought up, is that this issue would not have to exist if you just kind of took out this hyper
In and out
focus
your
on
sound.
yeah. Oh, sorry, my sound.
No, you're talking, but for some reason we can't hear it. Ronnie, is that on our end? Oh,
It might be on my end.
that's
Can you
my
hear me?
end.
It's your end, Yvette,
Okay.
because I can hear them.
Okay, that's me. I just
yeah.
got a flash or something about internet, but I see some workers outside, so maybe our Wi-Fi is down. Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead, Elle.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was basically my main point, is that yeah, if you just kind of stop policing trans people's existence on every kind of level, again, athletes, children, so on and so forth, then this issue does not have to exist and be such a huge thing. Because really, like in terms of the transgender community in general, there's a very small portion that are actually athletes, and somehow this has become
Right.
this like headliner issue for all
Right.
trans people, and it's really, I guess, I don't know, not really representative of all trans people, and it's kind of,
It's a blanket.
I don't know, yeah, it's this
A
kind of
bad
this blanket statement that really, I don't think the focus is in the right place. So yeah, that's kind of the point that I wanted to bring up.
I'm glad you said that, because I think we have bigger issues to deal with, to make sure you're inclusive, than a sport. I think they made some changes, like or made some adjustments, like the restrooms. Things that's not gonna. Somebody was affected and went to complain, and that's when they do a change. But at least I work in a lot of parks and recreation, so I can see the difference with gender, non-gender specific restrooms, stuff like that. So I'm glad to see that. I see banners on the wall about inclusivity, diversity, welcome, and I'm glad to see that amongst youth sports. But as a whole, like you said, everybody's not an athlete. So why are we changing, having bills passed to say protect our women from playing with boys and then winning the trophy? That's my personal opinion. I'll put that on record as my personal opinion. As a high school official, last year we had a young male to female was playing on a girls basketball team, and they weren't playing to their full potential because I guess they didn't want no one to notice that they were a boy. And I had to go up to them and say, "You better play. I don't. You out here. Go ahead and play. Be you. You joined the sport, and your team is down by 10. And so let's do this, you know." And they looked at me like you knew? I'm like, yeah, I know the whole time. Let's go. You know, so as a ref telling them this, you could see they're relaxed, they got confident, and it's almost like they were trying to hide in plain sight. I said, girl, you better play. You know, and I just love the bright how her face lit up, you know, and like, okay, you know, and I knew the coach, and I said, you know, coach, are you encouraging? Or are you hindering? Because why did I have to tell her that speech? She should know that coming out here. You know, he said, I tried to tell her, I mean, I don't know how to deal with it. I said, well, go get some counseling about it or something. But she's here. She's on your team. You got to figure that out, you know. And he was like, thank you for telling me something. I just didn't know how to address it, you know. And I just thought we, you know, had to do that. Let me take a break to say we were supposed to end at 10:30, but we're still talking. And we're going to be here till 11 if you want. I just called, you know, of course, I just took extra 30 minutes off work. I'm working from home too as we're talking. But this is good. This is good stuff. I'm not ready to go if you're not ready to go. So we're gonna definitely end at 11. But those of you who had to drop off or can't stay on, thank you for joining us. But you're welcome. This is something we call the after party. When, you know, whenever we have an ending, but we keep going, we do an after party.
Always. Always the after party.
So we like to party after the fact. So if you want to stay, please welcome. I have a couple of hands. I see. Was it Dr. Susan first or Ronnie you first?
Dr. Susan first.
Okay, all right. I wanted to emphasize that this is a bill that has passed the House of Representatives. It is not in effect. The next level would have to be passed through the Senate. And once passed through the Senate, then and only then would it go to the president. I think it's worth noting, and we simply cannot ignore the political aspect of this. At this time in our government, the House is decidedly conservative because there are more Republicans, and the Senate, for the moment, is Democratic. Sadly, we can't deny the fact that there's a lot of political stuff going on with this. When I say attack, I was referring in general to everything. All of the bills that have been passed in the last few years, whether it was sports, denying medical care, criminalizing parents and doctors who support their transgender kids, transgender people in general being beaten and killed, denying driver's license laws that allow patients up to 36 years of age to sue doctors that provided them care if they, you know, decide not to transition, the limits to classroom instruction, when in fact, the only way that we work through this is having the conversation, not allowing individuals to use their pronouns, don't say gay bills, the removal of a trans student from the lead role in a school play, and on and on and on. Why aren't we legislating feeding people and providing better educational opportunities and helping people with housing and so on and so forth? It comes from my perspective of humanism. Let us do what we need to do to provide for people so that they can become the best people that they can become. I love this conversation though.
Absolutely. This is
I'm very humanistic. And we have to have the conversation. Everybody everywhere wants to stop the conversation. The word that popped into my head was genocide. And I think Elle made an excellent point when she said, why are you trying to wipe us out? We're not going anywhere.
Not going nowhere.
And that is the whole concept behind genocide. We want to wipe out the entire group of people, as opposed to sitting down, having conversations and finding out who they are and looking for our places where we have commonality. And just real quick, my students are showing up in the chat, and they're showing up and showing out. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for all the comments.
Thank you.
And all the questions. Even though I would love to hear some of y'all voices, stop typing behind the keyboard. Come on in and join the conversation. That's what we want. That's why you're here. Ronnie, you were next.
Yes. Okay. And I appreciate each and every one of you for joining this conversation and staying for the after party. It is our pleasure that it goes on, because usually this is what happens in our talks every year. It goes on past it into an after party. But with that said, because I know Dr. Carter is a parent, and I've been seeing the articles. So my question is, what do we say to the parents on the other side of the coin? Because I had an article sent to me last night where it was a basketball game back in Massachusetts, and 3 of the players on the team got hurt. So they called the game at halftime because they were concerned about playoffs, because playoffs is coming up. And so if all their players are hurt, on the other team, there was a person that identified as a female, but yet and still the article stated that the person had full facial hairs and was, kind of slinging the other players on the other team around. So for those parents on the side where their athletes are being hurt, how do we address them, and what do we say to those parents? And how do we help them to understand the inclusivity? That's my question.
Anybody want to join in? Nicole, you got your hand up. You ready?
I can address that from a parental point of view,
Okay.
but I see Samantha and Nicole's hands up. So I'll defer to them.
Hey there. I wasn't going to necessarily address that. I was just going to say, one, thank you guys for the conversation. A few things kind of hit my mind a little different, because honestly, we have used different language, and I'll be honest, I've always thought of it as an attack on my womanhood. So while we said the word attack on transgender, I'm accepting of everybody. Do you at the end of the day? But I've always felt like my womanhood is under attack right now with some of the laws and legislation that's going on in the country. And so I never looked at it as an attack on the trans population. I was like, why, why do you want to play in this sport when we know that, physically we are composed different? I have more fat mass rather than muscle mass. And it just is that way. I understand my design as a creature, and I'm okay with that. But with that also, let me just say, as a mother of 3 daughters, I put my daughters in Girls Play LA so that they can play with the girls, but I also put them in co-ed sports because the same thing, I do want them to play at a higher level, and I do want that competitiveness, but I don't have an answer for like this exact topic. Right. You guys have brought up such good points, and I just wanted to thank everybody for, all their input. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I love the comment. Thank you so much. Samantha?
I thank Nicole. I love that input. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have more body fat on me than a male does. Sure don't like it. But it is what it is. You know, I wanted to actually bring a different word into the equation. I think genocide is, I'll be honest, when that word was said, I was triggered a little bit and I was offended. And the reason being is, you know, to say that this is a deliberate killing is, that's a big word. That's a very big word. And I come from a very different approach. And I'm probably perhaps one of the few people who is in support of this being passed. I'm open to my opinions and my beliefs being changed. I'm always open to that. And I believe that's important because our beliefs are what are the convictions that shape our reality, right? It is what leads us into the decisions that we make and the actions that we take and what we do and how we live and all of that, right? And I believe, you know, being open to changing beliefs and opinions is a sign of strength. So I'm always open to that. I'm here to learn. I'm here to double down on my convictions. But ultimately, here is how I think the world will be changed. And I'm betting my entire career, I'm betting my entire life on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that from a very, very serious level. I believe it's through love. I believe that we change the world through love. How does that pertain to this bill? I'm not sure right now, but the fact that we're all showing up to this conversation is one step in the right direction, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think, you know, whatever we can do, and it's not going to make everybody happy. There's just no way to do that. And I think that this is part of a longer process that has to happen. And there are so many facets to it. And right when we, you know, address one area, another area will be disrupted. And I think that's just part of life. And that's part of how we evolve as a society and as people. And that's part of how we learn how to love better. So I just wanted to, I wanted to put that word out there that for everybody, I don't have to agree with you to love you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't have to support your choice to love you.
Absolutely.
So how do we love when we don't agree? I think that's an underlying tone and maybe a driving force, at least for me, behind having this conversation. So to everybody on this call, however you're living, however you identify, I love you, whether I agree with you or not. I truly mean that. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is help people to be included. And listen, I'm not included in everything. At the
I
end
know
of the
nobody
day,
called me, include me in a whole lot of things.
yeah, I'm not included in everything either, and that is also part of life. And you know, I forget who it was, I'm sorry, but somebody, whoever was in the military, you know, I think you brought up a lot of great points. I did not write down the name, I apologize, but I think you brought up a lot of great points. You know, leveling up, you know, the point of life and growing and how we level up all the time requires us to step into new arenas. Anybody who's going anywhere has stepped into a new arena where they have been challenged and they've had to overcome things. And I think we're in a state of doing that right now. So I wanted to put that big old L word out there. Love, 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 even when we disagree. And what could change when we have more conversations like this, and when we're willing to hear opposing views and we're willing to be triggered a little bit and look into why we're triggered, look into why we're offended, offer an empathetic ear for other people to be heard and seen. Could that move the needle on why we feel attacked and why we feel, you know, that we have to defend ourselves or fight? And could that be a way that we are practicing inclusion more?
Absolutely. We're going to take the last two comments from Karen and then Alexis.
Hi, I just wanted to agree with Dr. Haynes because I know that she did mention genocide. I think it is a term that should be used, given that there is a lot of transgender children that have been killed because of them being transgender. And it is a proper term, I feel like, to use. And it doesn't happen to just children, it happens to everyone that is transgender. And I think that it's wild that these bills are being passed or wanting to be passed when in reality they are attacking them. I think that it is a proper term to use because they wouldn't be making these bills if they weren't looking out to attack the transgender community.
Thank you. That's true. That's absolutely true on the legislation itself. Alexis?
Oh, wait, let me turn on my camera, sorry. So in regards to like the discussion we've been having this entire meeting, it's been very eye-opening to me. I have transgender friends who go through this. In regards to sports, I feel like if we were to introduce transgender people, I think what really stood out to me, that Allison pointed out, that it would be decided on skill or weight class.
Yeah.
Because as like other people have also mentioned, there's like a disparity with men and women, you know, physically or like I'm not gonna say intellectually, I just say physically.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole sorry, I'm a little short of breath.
That's okay.
I feel like when it comes to transgender, it might also be a disparity with like physical, depending on the transition. That definitely can be a thing. So I feel like in that perfect world, it would probably be done by like weight class. I feel like that makes it more equal, but I feel like in sports, it would probably be like a whole revamp of like how we would play sports.
Yeah. And be honest with you, if you guys saw the movie Joanna Man, which I am in for about 7 seconds, Joanna Man was actually something that was that led us to this thought that kind of put us out there. What would happen if someone was of that skill level, more athletic, you know, made the sport, but he made the game better, but he did it under false pretenses. So it's something that a movie to watch to kind of see how transgenders have been inserted into sports also. So we're going to close
Thank you.
out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So Marty's going to close this out. Actually, we have Loretta's back, and we want to give her time to close this out for us. Thank you, everyone for being on this call. I know, first of all, the 25 of us, 30 of us that was here are more educated than anyone else in this topic as of today, because we've learned, we talked, we've asked the questions, and feel free to take note of our names and where you can reach us all, and we can do this again, you know. So Loretta, you want to close us out?
I am, and thank you so very much. First, I want to thank everyone for being with us today. We are excited that you were with us and you were willing to take this leap into spaces that others dare not tread. And that's one of the things about WOCPSEN. We will take those challenges on. We will challenge communities in reference to economic and social sustainability and the growth of communities. And this is one of the aspects of how we do it. We want to thank all our panelists and our contributors and our attendees. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As you know, we are live on YouTube, but this is already also going to be recorded and it'll be on our website as well. So you'll have an opportunity to see it there. We invite you to be a part of Urban Gurl, Suburban Swurl, which is a part of Ronnie's sports opportunity, as she is the director. We're doing some phenomenal work. As you know, she has got a golf clinic happening in her area. We also have our partnership with the organization in the UK, which is Youth Partners, where we are going international in reference to golf and bringing it globally. So we're excited about that. Multiple opportunities, and they're all on our website. We'd love for you to take a look and become a member, WOCPSEN. Last words will be Ronnie's. The floor is yours, Ronnie.
Thank you, everyone, so much for this enlightening conversation, because I'm always looking for education, for new perspectives on how we can all come together. I research these topics constantly because I work with women and girls in sports. And so I'm constantly looking for information. People are constantly sending me updates and stuff. With that said, again, WOCPSCN cannot be held liable for any comments, discussions, or contents presented by guests or speakers during any program designated by WOCP, SCN, GSP, and all our initiatives and its organization, because we just want to get the information out. We just want to have the conversation. We want to have a civil conversation to get more answers than questions. And the more we come together to ask the questions, we come up with solutions and answers to those questions. So I thank you so much for being here and being a part of this conversation. And the things that were discussed here, you can go and look them up online. You can go into the different articles on the website. Like I said before, it seems to be around funding, around government, around politics, and even what people didn't even interject into the conversation around religion. So, and we all have our strong opinions on those subjects. But again, I'm so grateful. We are so grateful, Loretta and I, for having you here today. And thank you, thank you, thank you.